Welcome everyone to our wholesale panel for today. We've got several distinguished people that are on the call itself that are panelists. We got several people from around the world that are listening in, and I want to welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Sometimes it sounds easy to put this together, but coordinating everyone's schedule is not quite that easy, and coordinating everyone's bandwidth is not that easy. So I think we're doing okay so far. Well, I want to introduce our panelists, first of all, and then I'm going to ask, after I introduce all of you, I'm going to ask each of you to just give us a 1-minute thumbnail of yourself and your company. We've got some prepared questions. They're really discussion questions, so that we can get a good, lively back on what's going on in the marketplace. Panelist-wise, we got Brendan from DBI. Brendan, raise your hand. We got Michael.
Hello, everybody.
From Verizon. We've got Latif. And we've got Mohamed from EN. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Give us a 1-minute thumbnail of who you are and your company. Maybe start out with Brendan.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Great to be on this panel today. I've only just made it because I've started my summer holiday as of today, but I was very keen to join. I'm joining on 5G, so hopefully this will work very well because we know how good 5G can be. So I'm Brendan Press. I'm CTO for a company called GBI. We're a prominent telecoms provider in the Middle East. We connect all of the GCC countries, Gulf countries, and we provide services across the Gulf and from Asia into Europe and the other way. We've been in this business for a good 14, 15 years now. We own our own assets, which is quite different to a lot of other providers and consortiums, etc. We have whole ownership of our cable infrastructure, and we're mainly subsea. I've been in the Middle East for the last almost 20 years and see some exciting developments happening here, and looking forward to seeing how we can develop the digital economies across this part of the world in support of the global ambitions of how digital can change people's lives.
Good. Michael with Verizon. Michael, if you don't mind giving us a quick thumbnail of what's going on at Verizon Partners.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jeff. And yeah, my name's Mike Farrie, so I'm the sales director for EMEA in VPS. So VPS is part of the Verizon Business Group, which is split into enterprise and essentially wholesale, but we call it partner solutions. So that's a group that I look after. And we're providing services across globally, but the area that I look after is EMEA. So we're providing services from sort of security and co-location right through to bandwidth. There's a bit of voice in there as well. A lot of focus now on our wireless network over in the US, IoT, fixed wireless access, those sorts of products. I'm based over in the UK, but I've got a team looking after accounts, both covering the Middle East and Africa, but otherwise around mainland Europe. So I guess we'll be able to talk about products in a bit more detail as we go around. But thanks, Jeff, for putting this together.
Well, glad to have you. Latif, with IQ, Latif, if you don't mind giving us a quick overview.
Sure, Jeff. Thanks. So my name is Latif Ozel. I'm telecom expert and consultant for 20 years now in this sector. I'm working for IQ Networks as the director of international wholesale business, and I'm responsible for sales and business development. IQ is an Iraqi company founded in 2005, and it's one of the leading FTTX and wholesale provider. IQ provides fast, reliable, stable fiber internet to businesses, homes, governmental institutions, and also provides fiber access transmission in Iraq to mobile operators and LTE carriers. Thanks, Jeff, again for bringing us all together.
Good. Well, thank you. Mohamed with EN. Mohamed, will tell a little bit of what's happening at EN.
Hello, Jeff. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. This is Mohamed Abbas from EN, Carrier and Wholesale Department. EN is a global technology group If some of you don't know about eAnd, we operate in 16 different countries across the globe with almost 160 million global subscribers. And my role here in the Carrier and Wholesale department is to manage the hyperscalers, OTTs, CDNs, and app developers in terms of commercial aspects and a business relation and business development as well. I'm so glad to be here today with you in this live webinar. And thank you so much, Jeff, and the team for bringing us all together.
Good. Well, thank you, Mohamed. You know, one of the things that's always interesting doing a presentation like this is getting the diverse opinions of all the people that are here. I didn't really introduce myself completely, but my name is Jeff Seal. I'm the managing partner for Telecom Review North America, and I've been in this business since when they first invented the telephone, I think. But it's been a while, and it's always interesting to see the changing technologies, the changing world, and I look forward to a good, lively discussion about that today. I'm going to start out, and we got some discussion questions, and they're meant to really just stimulate conversation. And what I'll do is I'll provide the question, and then kind of go around the group and get your thoughts are on each one. I'm going to start out with one about what are today's main obstacles in accelerating wholesale growth in regards to regulation, bandwidth, capacity, and latency across networks. Brendan, do you think you could start for us, please?
Yeah, of course. What I will say to start with is that it's a very exciting time, I think, for the industry. The phenomenal growth that we're now seeing in data and the players that are now driving that. Clearly, the big four, as we call them, the AWSs, Google, Microsoft, Meta. In terms of the services, both they provide in consumer and business, obviously they're leading the way, and they're driving the capacity growth that we're seeing globally. There are definitely challenges, though. I mean, just in terms of getting the new infrastructure in place to ensure that this growth can continue. There's a lot of investment coming from various parties, but there are also a lot of delays and a lot of challenges in getting the resources aligned to making things happen when they need to happen. So I think on the sort of capital infrastructure side, the asset side, you know, a lot of talk at the moment, particularly in the Middle East, about new cable infrastructure coming in, whether it's invested in by one of the four parties I talked about directly, or whether it's operators like ourselves and others, eAnd and others, investing in our own infrastructure. And that has challenges, like I say. On the regulatory side, I think, yes, I mean, regulatory always has to be the foundation in terms of how the various markets can coordinate, support each other, can be addressable, accessible. I think a lot of developments has happened on the regulatory side in the last few years, which has allowed the development of all the services in place. But more has to happen. And I think the final thing to say is on the vendor side and the importance of the vendors in supporting what we need. Tremendous, like I say, capacity requirements, demands going up, but their timelines have been ever increasing, getting longer, chip shortages, etc. And that's something we have to manage very carefully. And in GBI, we take a lot of time now analysing the market, making sure we know what the demand can be, not just the next 12, 18 months, but the next 5, 10 years, so that our investments and our vendor partners can work with us to ensure the delivery of the services. And we get the infrastructure right, which I think we have to date with the challenges I've talked about, then, you know, this part of the world where and my company work in will have some great developments and we'll see some great successes.
Kind of lost Jeff.
We lost our moderator. Who wants to go next?
I can take. So let me then go on what Brendan stressed over here. So indeed, several obstacles hinder the acceleration of wholesale growth in terms of regulations, bandwidth capacity, and latency. Firstly, regulatory frameworks and policies vary across regions, which might have different dynamics in regard to their history, politics, economic and social status, and sometimes even lack of collaboration and vision. That creates complexities and barriers for wholesale providers to cooperate and provide efficient business operations. So I think as a proposed solution, I would say standardization of such regulation frameworks based on some generic parameters, such as culture, population, geography, maybe economic capabilities, and so on, can help streamline business operations and encourage investment for growth and development. Regarding bandwidth capacity, it's an ongoing challenge in meeting, of course, the increasing demand for data-intensive applications and services. Wholesale providers need to continually invest in network infrastructure upgrades to ensure sufficient capacity for business and consumers. By adopting some measures, service providers can ensure network capacity while minimizing environmental impact and maybe promoting sustainability. Some of the examples might be like infrastructure sharing, for instance, or maybe implementing energy efficient technologies and practices. Exploring the integration of renewable energy sources is definitely going to help. One of the important and I think high trend topic is virtualization and cloud technologies. This will reduce physical infrastructure requirements for sure. And on the other hand, beyond these, capacity requirements, security, resiliency, and low latency are also the other key factors for today's digital communication. Wholesale providers need to optimize their networks, leverage new technologies, expand infrastructure to minimize and enhance user experiences. More importantly, I think this is also another topic, maybe this should be taken, but there is a drastic technology evolution on OSS systems, network deployments, and other areas of operations. Services shall be located more and more at the edge of the networks. On the other hand, the network infrastructure management is becoming centralized. With this new all software-based cross-platform automated solutions, we have to see there is a paradigm shift in our daily operations. So the workforce as well as the management have to be trained and adapted in line with this new way of managing our infrastructure.
Good. Michael, what's going on over on the Verizon side in regard to this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably echo some of what Brendan and Latif said, but I guess, certainly as technology evolves, we see a wide range of new services emerging. That increases the volume of data. It also increases the volume of threats as well. So all of that new network and technology needs to comply to standards. We need to give consideration to our customers, our vendors, all the way through the chain, and all of that really is wrapped up in the sort of regulation and licensing to operate in certain geographies. And that's certainly not getting any simpler. And it's, while it's not necessarily a direct obstacle, it's certainly a challenge, and it's a costly challenge, a timely challenge, and certainly an intellectually challenging challenge to navigate. Obviously, the consequences of getting that wrong are potentially dangerous. From a bandwidth perspective, for the carrier market, it's a real fine balancing act. We need to deploy infrastructure, but competition out there is fierce, and certainly with the hyperscalers, they're generating a huge amount of demand, but they're also building a huge amount of network as well. So that's always creating a degree of uncertainty in the carrier space. So in terms of what capacity we actually need to build and how we build it to ensure we get the right level of return on investment, that we're able to then build at a pace and a rate that we can pass the pricing back up to the end user, the consumer, at a rate that's acceptable to them, that we meet all our emissions and waste compliance and all the rest of it. So it's certainly there's some uncertainty there, and that's making the deal structures much more complex. You throw into that rising energy prices, inflation, challenges with equipment in the supply chain, and a bunch of different things that are happening. I think from the kind of latency perspective, that all fits into the same story. I mean, I guess to reduce latency, take out network hops, increase capacity, go to later technology, but that of course is costly. So what we're seeing a lot of is actually that sort of decision-making process slowing right down, and a lot of the deals that we're doing with, certainly in the enterprise space, is no longer putting in new capacity. It's actually about kind of renewing and reterming deals that are already in place, and that certainly brings its own challenges. So I guess those obstacles have probably always been there, but certainly in the current climate, they've been supercharged, and we're certainly seeing them a lot more sort of acutely than perhaps we were in previous years. But yeah, that's what we're seeing.
Sure, good. Mohamed, how about over at EN?
Well, I can't agree more to what my colleagues Michael, Brendan, and Latif said about the obstacles and the challenges of today's telecom industry or wholesale industry. So, yeah, we all know that one of the main challenges today of any telecom or wholesale provider is basically navigating through complex regulatory frameworks that vary, of course, as Latif said, from country and region. Different countries have different rules and regulations and around telecommunications and other services as well, which can make it sometimes difficult for a telecom provider or a wholesale provider to expand their services across the borders of the country. Compliance also with these regulations can also be sometimes expensive, and it can be also sometimes time consuming for the telecom operator or for the wholesale. And this, of course, shapes the country's development plans when it comes to the telecom infrastructure services. I believe the UAE has been always a role model when it comes to collaboration between the regulatory authority, the TDRA, and the licensed telecom operators from one side, but from the other side also with the neighboring countries and the regional players. And I believe that this will help any country, and this has helped the UAE to position as the main tech and digital hub for the region. That's one challenge of the regulatory. On the bandwidth, this is another big challenge where wholesalers basically are always required to ensure that there is sufficient capacity and bandwidth to meet the growing demand of the businesses and consumers as well. The wholesale providers have been always looking into best ways on how to invest in upgrading their existing domestic or international infrastructure, as well as investing in new technologies to keep up with the increasing demand of high-speed data transfer. And I think that we need to continue looking at these solutions. We at eAnt, we have unceasingly invested in our network to bring the best in digital experiences, and also leading in the home market with the best-in-class mobile and fiber to the home networks. Latency is another topic which basically, if you allow me to take like more 30 seconds to talk about it, we all know that how high latency can negatively impact all kind of business that today rely on a fast and reliable data transfer. So wholesale providers, including eAnt, have been always paying more attention to find new shorter routes, new terrestrial routes connecting the region with Europe or with Asia towards the main global hubs and main exchanges, but also putting more efforts to increase the content and traffic localization by attracting the CSPs, the OTTs, the CDNs to host their content in the UAE to reduce the latency. We at eAnt, we have been always a pioneer on this front, and we were the first provider in the region to reach to almost 73% traffic localization. So this means that 73% of the traffic being served in the UAE is available in the UAE. So overall, if I can conclude, these challenges require wholesale providers to be inventive and adaptable in order to stay competitive and meet the evolving needs of their customers.
Sure, good.
If I may just add a comment on the latency,
please do.
On the regulatory side, just from a Middle East perspective, because I think in many ways traditionally the market in that part of the world, this part of the world, has been a little bit protectionist, and that has led to regulation which has not really been as open as other parts of the world, and it's not facilitated, for instance, more competitive pricing being quite close. I'm a great fan of open access, and I think it's open access that you see in other parts of the world that really do drive the competition, the pricing that's needed, effectively the adoption of the services that the customers will adopt because they can. It's more competitive. And a lot of the investment has been stalled, I believe, because in the past there's been too much conservatism in terms of opening up markets. We are seeing that now, and I think with GBI we're working with markets like Iraq, etc., where traditionally it's been maybe not seen as a serious contender in the transportation of traffic east to west, or certainly from Middle East to Europe. But with the developments in the regulatory situation, developments in pricing, which is always critical, you're now seeing an opening up of that market and opening up of other markets that mean that traditionally we've been dependent upon latency, for instance, through certain countries and accessing Europe. That's going to change, and that's going to change radically. And it's going to mean that not only do customers get alternative for diversity, but they also get a latency that improves by 20-30% once these markets develop. And I like to say the Middle East is in an inflection point now, where a little bit of pricing, etc., has stalled growth. I think with the basically working together with partners, with ministries, etc., there'll be a different situation where capacities can increase and investment will come in across the region, not just 1 or 2 markets, but across the region to the benefit of everybody in the region.
Good. So Brendan, you think that, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it peer pressure from other parts of the world, other countries, is what's causing the improvements?
Yeah, I mean, it's competition at the end of the day. I think to date there's been a lot of focus in terms of the protectionism of traditional telecom companies and the wholesale market. It's been very protected. I think that's been based on a bit of a short-termism as not really understanding the prospects for growth. If you look now at the likes of the big telegeographies, etc., who comment on the market, I mean, it's about, I think, something like 21 tera of traffic going between the Gulf and Europe. That's estimated to go up to something like 700. 200 tera, go up to 700 over the next over a few years. So tremendous growth, but that can only be supported if pricing and regulatory situation is such that it's allowing for open access, it's allowing for you to deal with a neutral situation in each country, working with various operators rather than being tied to one. Because of the monopolisation of that market. So this is changing. I mean, I'm not being negative. I think this is very positive what's happening, but it has to happen if you're going to get the sort of growth that's anticipated in the next few years.
Sure. Well, Mohamed, what do you think are the latest trends in the launch of new digital innovative solutions and new business models for the wholesale marketplace?
Sorry, I think I lost your voice.
The central engine of growth in the wholesale business is going to be innovation in what they do and how they do it. And what do you see as the latest trends in the launch of new innovations that are helping to grow that business?
Well, I think that's a very nice question, Jeff. I think the wholesale industry overall is constantly evolving, and new digital solutions and business models are emerging today to keep up with the changing market demands. So we have seen that some of the latest trends in the launch of the new digital solutions and business models in the wholesale industry include some of the new digital services that are not limited to, but include e-commerce, for example, the e-commerce platforms to reach to a wider audience and streamline their operations. And of course, this allows customers to easily place orders and track their deliveries online. My son is in Egypt right now. He orders something from Amazon and he keeps tracking. And then he sent me a message saying, the driver is outside and you need to meet him. So this is how the e-commerce platform today benefits the end users. So when you look at e-Ant, we were the first regional operator to offer a telecom-owned e-commerce platform to help the regional and domestic merchants and customers in their daily payment transactions. So e-commerce is one of them. The other thing basically is the AI, which is now being used massively to enhance the customer experiences. And this is happening by creating personalized product recommendations, suggestions, and optimized pricing based on customer age, based on customer region, and predictive analysis. We have also seen that blockchain technology, which is nowadays being used to create more secure and transparent supply chains and enabling wholesalers to better track products and ensure quality control. Last but not least, I would say that also mobile applications. We have seen some of the wholesalers now, not the telecom operators only, but the wholesalers, they have started now to create mobile applications and online portals to make it easier for their customers, being CSPs, OTTs, or CDNs, or being normal carrier customers, to place the orders and to track their orders and deliveries online on the go. And even after the service, they can track if there is any outage on a submarine cable or a terrestrial network. So I strongly believe that any wholesaler today can stay ahead of the competition by embracing these trends. I mean, this will continue to grow the business of the wholesale. Using the legacy services will never take us anywhere.
Sure. Well, good. Latif, what do you think about that, innovations in the marketplace?
I totally agree on Mohammed's comment on AI, especially e-commerce and blockchain technologies, and also mobile applications that he was mentioning. I totally agree with these developments in the wholesale industry that can open up totally different new products and direction in our industry. But in the regular services that we have at the moment, I also believe that there are still a lot of room to grow. For instance, IoT, because the IoT was a major trend for a very long time. I mean, this has been discussed in the industry for a very long time, and it's continually driving innovation in the ICT industry. IoT development was not progressing at desired pace maybe until a couple of years' time, but because of technical requirements, mostly such as standardization of protocols, sensors, challenges about the devices and installation about cabling and so on, this actually was not moving very forward as expected. But today, most of these challenges have been tackled, and the capacity required for a device is usually not substantial in IoT. But considering millions and even billions of devices, it can generate huge amount of data. For instance, as of July 2023, there are approximately 15 billion connected IoT devices worldwide, and the figure is expected to almost double to 30 billion by 2030. And the top 5 leading countries at the moment are China with 5.2 billion IoT devices. Then followers are United States, 3 billion, India 2, Japan 1.8, and Germany 1.6. So the market is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 16% for every year. So that's why, considering all of this and also the developments on the 5G and edge computing, more rollouts in the region, this is going to increase exponentially the IoT devices, and there is a huge opportunity there. Another topic that I want to discuss about new business models is about the low Earth orbit satellite solutions. As you know, SpaceX, Starlink, or Amazon's Kuiper or OneWeb, those are providing these low Earth orbit satellite solutions mostly directly to consumers or businesses. And I'm sure this will be opening up through new channels and partners in several places. So one should expect, maybe I would call it like satellite virtual network operators when these I have also a comment on artificial intelligence because, as Mohammed indicated, I think it is very important about it's because harnessing the power of data analytics, and it provides insights to network performance, optimizing resource allocation, and improving service delivery. Service providers and wholesale industry should not miss that. Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You froze for a minute, but
Yeah, okay.
good.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Michael, what do you think over at Verizon? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, as others have said, innovation in the wholesale space is absolutely critical, and particularly in an environment where, certainly for the operators, we've got a lot of legacy business sort of on the estate, which is declining, and we have to evolve that revenue line and essentially find new ways of getting traffic onto the network. And I think, while it kind of evolution, if you like, and innovation and even sort of diversification is absolutely critical, there is also a bit of a counter to that. There is a risk of sort of over-rotating and trying to be all things to all customers. I think there's a bit of danger in there as well. And do you stick to your swim lane and just do network, or do you spread yourself across every product? But I think there's an area in between. And I guess three that I wanted to call out where Verizon has a lot of experience. So fixed wireless access, video conferencing, and automation. And certainly for fixed wireless access, so essentially using a wireless connection as a access mechanism for maybe an SD-WAN type infrastructure, which it wasn't that long ago that it was looked at with some degree of concern, and certainly kind of secondary backup at best. But now very much we're seeing that coming forward as a primary service. I guess the why to that, it's an incredible technology. It's comparable from a performance perspective to a fixed network. It's comparable from a cost perspective. It's very easy to deploy. It's movable. Lots of reasons why actually putting a wireless network infrastructure in place, it's great. So we've seen some real innovation in that space, and certainly some real pickup in demand from customers. Video conferencing, and this isn't a shameless plug, but we're on the Blue Jeans platform. This is something which a Verizon product. But I guess the reason I wanted to mention it is we position it in a very different way. So it's not another video conferencing platform. There's enough of those out there at the moment being successful to differing degrees. It's an incredibly competitive market, very hard to get into. So from a wholesale proposition, the kind of innovation has been around putting out something which is open source, white label, if you like, that can be customized into a bunch of different areas, be that healthcare, hospitality, running virtual music events, for instance, on the healthcare side, kind of remote Medicare, lots in the educational space, so remote learning and education. And in terms of the sort of the journey of video conferencing, we haven't even begun in terms of what else can be brought into it with AI, augmented reality, things like the Google glasses to increase the user experience, the ability to have people maybe working on some remote oil pipeline somewhere and talking to an engineer 1,000 miles away who's actually seeing what they're seeing, all those different technologies. So video conferencing, it's an innovation that continues to grow. And then the last piece is really around automation. And perhaps there's nothing overly new about automation. We've all been working on automation for many years, but I think it's fair to say, well, maybe from Verizon's perspective, we're a long way from there yet. So we continue to innovate in that space, and that's the quoting of services, the ordering, the post-sales, the service management, be that raising tickets around faults or changes to network or billing inquiries, whatever it could be. Right. And there's a real quest to try and get everything automated. So there's quite a long way to go on that journey before everything is completely automated. So that's where the innovation is. So, and actually just from a kind of business model perspective, I guess at a really high level, one of the things that we're certainly seeing across the industry is this, I think the term is structural separation. So big operators essentially selling off, or not selling off, but separating off their network business, so sort of network company and then retaining a service company. And we've seen that with many examples around the industry to different levels of success. And perhaps that's something we're going to see more of, but maybe at a more kind of granular level for business model. Certainly, there's a massive call now to be much more flexible in terms of how we charge customers for bandwidth. So very much kind of pay for what they use, opposed to pay for everything and potentially not use all of it. So there's some real value we're trying to pass to customers there. There are some quite interesting models that are now coming on for actually passing savings to customers. Some are very effective, some certainly need a bit more work, but again, how we can pass value downstream, but also still as a carrier get return on investment for our network. And then I guess the third part is around certainly when we're seeing growth in things like CPaaS, so lots of combined services or single platforms. There's a much more sort of bundled type approach. And again, there's sort of leverage on pricing, benefit for customers there. So I guess, yeah, lots of flexibility, but innovation is key. But again, there is definitely a risk of perhaps innovating too far and kind of losing touch on the actual running an actual core profitable business. So sorry, Jeff.
I understand. You can sometimes. But anyway, Brendan, what do you think? What about innovations going on?
Yeah, very interesting thoughts and conversations. I think from my perspective and where GBI are, we're very focused on our core business. We see the core infrastructure being basically the platform for everything. If you don't provide the platform, the capacities, the continuity of service, the routing for latencies, yes, the hosting is an area we've gone into. We've done a great partnership with Meta, for instance, in the last year. We're the second node in the region, only the second node in the region, providing localized services and low latencies, not just to Qatar, but across the region. That, for me, is innovation. The innovation we're doing in Iraq with developing that as a new route into Europe, route into Europe. It's a big development. It allows new services to be accessible and be at latencies where people playing games in the region don't have to be accessing content outside the region, and they can enjoy a better experience. Again, we're not providing the services as such, we're providing the infrastructure to allow those services. That, for me, is innovative in itself, working with regulatory bodies, working with the ministries, working to ensure that the model work makes sense, ensuring that in making those investment decisions on infrastructure, there's a return for the countries we're working in. And the other benefit clearly is a model that allows all the content providers, the service providers, to deliver their services. I'm not going to make any excuses. With GBI, we are very focused on infrastructure. There are other companies around in this panel, Verizon and Yanda, are doing many other services on top of. And you do get benefit from that. But we believe the core business is ensuring the ongoing, continual trust in an infrastructure. And especially in a region which has got, I think, still a lot of developments to happen. And there's something like 70, 80 new cables coming in into the region in the next few years. And we need to make sure that there is the levels of diversity and economically that they can all play a part to ensure that both in terms of the region services, but also transferring the data that needs to go globally from east to west, that can be supported by this part of the world. And that's where my focus is. I think the company needs to be focused on the infrastructure and ensuring that we can be a trusted partner so that other players that deliver on top services can see the benefits. We're working with partners that deliver that for them.
Sure. Well, taking off from what you just said there, the growth in the submarine cable business to take care of the huge change capacity needs. I'd like to get your thoughts on where you see it growing even more, potentially in your marketplaces. Do you see some people are talking about having submarine optical POPs where people are going to interconnect at those POPs only, and that's where they do their cross connections. And those suboptic POPs are something that's kind of it's being discussed a lot these days. Can you tell us what your thoughts are on things like that? Mohamed, you want to take that? Start out there?
I think we all missed the question. Was it only me?
No, I missed it as well. I couldn't hear.
Submarine cable growth is huge right now, and capacity and latency continue to be an issue for people, not necessarily because of the submarine cable put in, just because there's so much growth going on. Where are we now in addressing those issues? Is it submarine cable data connectivity? A lot of people are using submarine cable POPs to connect to them. What are you guys doing in your respective areas?
Well, if I got your question correctly, if I understood it correctly, I would say the deployment of digital infrastructure or any digital infrastructure, including submarine cables and any other forms of a high-speed connectivity or connection, has continued to expand in the recent years. I mean, we all know that the ongoing rollout of 5G networks and the expansion of fiber optic networks across countries and the increasing adoption of regional cloud computing and edge computing technologies all are contributing to the deployment and the development of stronger digital infrastructure within any country. When you look at us as eAnt, we have also taken a global lead in the FTTH technology, fiber to the home, and specifically on the penetration of the FTTH within the UAE. This has been ranking the UAE as #1 for the highest FTTH penetration, and we maintained this position for the last 7 years. So on the network front, when it comes to the network, so I would say that the first trial of the 6 gigahertz spectrum in the UAE has created history for us by taking a step for the future of the 5G within the country. So again, talking about the submarine and in terms of latency, advances in network technology, and the deployment of edge computing infrastructure are helping massively to reduce the latency and improve the overall performance of any digital application.
Right.
So commenting on us as a company, so as eAnt, we have taken the lead in the Middle East region, and as we speak, we are hosting the majority of the hyperscalers, and this is actually helping us to reduce or not to invest in the submarine cables as before, as we are now hosting the majority of the hyperscalers, OTTs and CDNs with their full computing nodes, as well as their edge nodes, and to serve both the domestic customers in the UAE as well as the regional users in the Gulf countries, in the Near East Asia, and also the Africa regions. So I'm sure there is still a lot of work to be done across this front, in particular in areas with limited connectivity or outdated infrastructure within the country or within the region. But overall, the trend now is towards more connected, faster, and more reliable digital environment.
Okay, good. Latif, what do you think about that?
Well, Jeff, Mohammed actually mentioned about mostly the internal dynamics to be able to decrease the latency issues in the networks. I want to also stress about the international connectivity part of it, because obviously the deployment of submarine cables has helped a lot to reduce capacity requirements and improve connectivity across globe for a long time, and still for sure. And this has made it possible to set up digital ecosystems that are more reachable and available for everyone in most parts of the world. However, there are still some challenges, like MTTR issues, operating costs, path diversity requirements, especially at some locations in the world, like Suez Canal and so on. And most importantly, the requirement of low latency connectivity, as also Mohammed indicated. So until now, capacity requirement is more important than latency, except for some specific applications and services like maybe financial synchronization services and so on. But today, latency is definitely one of the major things to consider. To overcome those issues, especially in terms of route path diversity, latency, and redundancy, terrestrial alternatives are very crucial, very critical for uninterrupted business operations. Firstly, a terrestrial route would add much needed diversification and redundancy in global communications, reducing dependence on a single and vulnerable geographical point. Natural disasters, political tensions, or technical issues compromise the wet cable systems. And on the other hand, a terrestrial alternative could ensure continuous uninterrupted connectivity. Second, terrestrial networks with their less complex installations and repairs can deliver lower latency connections, significantly enhancing data transmission speeds and thereby optimizing digital experiences. Lastly, the role of consortiums in driving such projects cannot be underestimated. I know that these are also on the submarine cables, but there is a different perspective when it comes to terrestrial consortiums. Because with a collective of diverse stakeholders, telecommunication companies, tech giants, governments, investors, not only spread the financial risk, but also bring together the technical know-how, resources, and influence needed and to navigate regulatory landscapes. For that respect, actually, we as IQ Networks have initiated a project called Silk Route Transit, providing terrestrial connectivity from Europe to Middle East over Balkans, Turkey, and Iraq. This is decreasing the delays from 100 milliseconds, 150 milliseconds for Gulf to almost 70 milliseconds. And this is 100% terrestrial, by the way. And we believe that this is going to be the best alternative for the wet, I would say, generic connectivity for Gulf.
Okay, good, good. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, so I guess if we go back to your question about kind of how we're getting on, certainly with submarine cables, but building out the sort of the digital railroad, if we call it that. I mean, demand certainly continuing to increase. There's no doubt about that. So to that extent, we're still building the railroad, and it kind of throws up that almost like kind of cartoon animation image of a sort of runaway train with someone at the front of it desperately throwing out track as the train goes faster and faster. And different regions are growing at different paces. So, the African region is certainly, we're seeing, more growth there than perhaps in Europe. But that said, we're seeing growth across all regions. And traditionally, it's the carriers who have been building out their networks to support the business which has been coming off their enterprise customer base and building out the necessary network to support that. The difference now is that we're seeing the increasing amounts of traffic going to a cloud-based environment, and the content providers then really building those networks themselves. And that creates, another opportunity for the carriers, which is to sort of build out the ecosystem, the sort of spider's web of connectivity. I read somewhere that $10 billion of submarine cables are coming into deployment. I think it was from sort of back end of 2002 up to 2024. I mean, it's just a colossal amount of capacity coming online. You put that capacity on a wet link into the network, you've then got to land it, you've got to cross-connect it, you've got to backhaul it. So, huge then sort of terrestrial requirements and operations or opportunities there. There's also increasing amounts of talk, and I think it was, apologies, I've got it wrong, I think it was Mohamed who mentioned it, but around LEO and MEO systems. We're seeing increasing, certainly with our kind of fixed wireless capabilities, customers then asking about, well, can we do this on low Earth orbit satellite or even medium Earth orbit satellite? Those technologies need landing, and they need down stations and ground stations and terrestrial links. So the capacity is just building and building, and from a latency perspective, it's a constant quest to get as low as you can. You densify the network, you add more routes, you take out network hops. But I guess one of the other considerations, it's something I think Verizon struggles with as a business, is to actually know how much capacity we've got in the ground already. And if you're not absolutely acute on that, you're not going to go and build more. And that could be empty ducts that at some point cost a lot of capex to build, that are sitting empty under European cities or or regions, or bundles of fibre that haven't yet been lit up either in submarine systems or terrestrial systems. There's quite a lot of, I guess, uncertainty about how much actual unused capacity is already there before we then go and build more. So, we're clearly a long way down this road of deployment, but there's a long way to go. Is there an end at all? And we're certainly now operating in an environment with a bunch of other factors to bring into that consideration with equipment supply, inflationary prices, and so forth. So, yeah, we're seeing a clear picture of demand, but a more complex picture of where we actually satisfy that demand.
Sure, understand. Brendan, what do you think on that?
On the development and the diversity, particularly, I think diversity is another critical factor to this. We haven't really spent a lot of time talking about that today. We've talked about the capacity growth and how important it is to support new services and localized edge computing. But the diversity and the part we play in making sure, yes, if there are issues, be it terrestrial or sea-wise, we've got always an alternative for our customers. In the Middle East, again, we've had singly most of the traffic going through a certain route, mostly through Egypt. It's gone east-west. Lately, we're talking about what's going on in IQ networks and providing new routes into Europe. That's critical as the demands on us from our customers increased, and the issues of non-service have become more and more critical. I mean, no one expects anything less than 99.9, but anytime something happens, there has to be an alternative. And that's where the investment we're putting into new routes, working with likes of IQ, etc., ensuring that we've got this alternative. And as GBI, I think we're probably unique in being able to provide what we call our north and south commitment. If something goes down on the south route, which traditionally takes 90% of the traffic, there is now an alternative to provide for a lower latency route, a north route solution. And likewise, if something goes down on north, we can always provide the south. So we're gearing up to ensure that we support the services that are needed. So that for me, that's, as I said before, that's the innovation as an infrastructure provider to ensure that you've got 100% service continuity, pricing that makes sense to allow the development of services, a hosting capability which is very much linked to what we do now, what we've done with Meta, and what we've done with others, and what we do with others, to ensure that the services can be brought in a cost-competitive, assured way, and that's the core of our business.
Sure. And you all read the same thing, is it data center and the growth of new data centers, new data center campuses. It's an exploding business. I mean, the new there, because there's a lot of data that needs to be moved around the world. Yeah. How is that affecting? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I just say, I think data centers is very important to us. It's something we're investing in, a lot of investment. One of the most, I think, most important investors. If you talk to the investment community, it's obviously has been seen as a no-brainer, in terms of getting involved. Even Europe and the States, I'm amazed. I was at ITW not so long ago and seeing the breadth and the depth of development of data centers in the States. Places like Virginia, the capital of data center growth, is still growing at tremendous rates.
Sure.
The challenges in other parts of the world be access to economic supply of energy. Obviously, there's a move to make that environmentally friendly as well, ensure that you've got some development of the industry. And we're doing what we can in linking solar power, for instance, this part of the world to support that energy requirements. Talking about 1 megawatt type facilities, people are talking about 100, 200 megawatt facilities because of the advent of AI and the amount of computing power that's needed in single sites to support the activities. For us as GBI, we're very much invested in that space, and what I say is we provide a one-stop solution to allow both the investment and support of the businesses from a hosting and a computing power perspective in the part of the world which has the lowest energy costs, but also provides the capacity both on our network and our other networks for diversity to allow distribution and the support of those services. yes, very much for us. That's the integration that we're focused on. Again, a part of the management of data, those that manage the data, allowing them to have the confidence of a company that can be focused on the hosting and sort of the distribution of the service and the data that's needed in the region. And I think the last thing to say is I think the region will develop much more and more equalised basis. I think there's been a lot of developments in places like the UAE that Mohamed was talking about, been fantastic successes in terms of encouraging some of the investment that's come in from some of the big players in the OTT space. That needs to be equalised, and there's no way that there will not be a lot of developments in other parts of the region. Qatar, we now Microsoft, Google, Meta, as we host other parts of the region, Iraq. And there's going to be developments that allow for the edge computing and the need for the development of data centres across the region, and there won't be just one country. There'll be a number of countries being able to support populations that depend on these services.
Sure. That if you think about the growth in data centers and subsequently really the growth in data moving around the world, that's a huge issue there. How do you continue to make sure you got the connectivity to reach all of these? Michael, what do you think? What's from the Verizon's perspective? The growth in data centers and geographically redundant data centers, how's that affecting your business?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the demand to build more data centers is absolutely there. I guess if we sort of think about some of the key industry themes, so virtualization, security, sustainability, so sort of three themes that really influence the industry. We've certainly seen an exponential increase in cloud applications from big enterprise right down to small business now. So all of those applications going up to the cloud, that creates more storage or more data. That data needs storing in a secure environment. So to that extent, there will always be a need for more data centers. We've also seen a lot of changes to working habits, much more sort of disparate organizations, from kind of remote working to just hugely distributed environments, be that the organization themselves or their supply chain. And then the need to access information anyway. So, again, data centers are at the absolute heart of that. So, yes, we need more. It's not perhaps quite as easy as just going out and building more. I mean, certainly in the EMEA space, we've seen a number of issues sort of around power volatility. A number of countries have some real concerns around the kind of environmental impact of data centers. So to get the licenses and so forth to operate, it is more challenging, there's no doubt, and more costly. And it certainly sort of influenced why a lot of the really big data center providers are really the result of sort of acquisition and consolidation. I think almost all of the big sort of name listed data center providers are. But from Verizon's point of view, I guess contrary to sort of Brendan's view of building, we've actually done the opposite in terms of it's a massive part of our business in EMEA. We make a significant amount of ongoing kind of new business sales and revenue from co-location space, be that space, power, and interconnection type technology. But what we're not actually doing in EMEA is investing in more. We're kind of sweating the assets, if you like. It's not to say we won't in the future, but some time back, and it was very widely spread in the news, we divested, I think it was 30 or 29 data centers to Equinix, and that then gave us the ability to really leverage on that sort of super center capability that they provided, but also to still have ownership of those customers to provide services back into them. So yeah, huge consolidation in the space, undoubtedly a continuing demand for data centers, but definitely a more complex environment to build them. But I think for Verizon, it's probably watch this space. Over in the US, again, it's a key asset of ours. We are bringing more online. We're putting more capacity into existing data centers. We've got some really interesting partnerships, certainly down sort of in the Mediterranean basin, and we're seeing some phenomenal growth down there, as well as areas like Africa start really picking up. So I think data centers are here to stay, but that does bring with it a bit of concern about. I mentioned the kind of environmental impact, but I think that is a very real thing which has sort of slowed down the decision making and growth there. But that's sort of Verizon's standpoint in EMEA at the moment.
Good. Appreciate that. Latif, can you tell us more of what you're thinking and seeing out there?
Yes, well, Jeff, I think I can't agree more than what my peers are also saying here, because data centers serve as critical infrastructure for storing, processing, and delivering digital services. They provide the necessary computing power, storage capacity, network connectivity required for businesses to operate. And data centers enable businesses to enhance their digital capabilities, improve data security, and achieve high availability for their services. They also play a vital role for supporting emerging technologies like edge computing, IoT, by providing localized processing and storage capabilities. From the main driver's point of view, I think firstly the OTTs definitely they are transforming the way content is consumed by passing, traditional broadcast and cable networks and requiring huge amount of transmission capacity, storage, and some processing power due to scalability requirements. So OTTs need to provide all these services with low latency targets, and they are the main drivers for data center requirements. Cloud services are essential for service providers for scalability, cost efficiency, and faster time to market. Global reach, reliability, and availability. Compliance also providing focus for core competencies for their customers. Today, cloud solutions are critical for business operations, from typical office applications to databases, CRMs, ERPs. They are all operated at the cloud. Most of the major global enterprise has already migrated to cloud, and even medium and small segment transition is almost a click before the data migration and inputs. So the requirements of low latency services is definitely one of the most important item, I think, about having a data center in a specific region. Online gaming, for instance, multiplayer online games heavily rely on latency to provide a smooth and responsive gaming experience. High frequency trading, HFT, in financial industry, HFT involves making rapid transactions in response to market fluctuations, and that requires low latency, definitely, applications to work well. Video conferencing and VoIP, as we are also doing now, and IoT that we were talking about, smart cities, industrial automation, energy management, agriculture, healthcare, in every sector. Wearables and fitness, environmental monitoring. Now IoT is everywhere. VR and AR applications are also, these immersive technologies, they also require low latency connectivity. So I would say, in short, yes, we definitely need more and more data centers everywhere in the world.
Good. I agree. I think everybody else does too. Mohamed, what do you think from the standpoint of EN?
Well, I think my colleagues covered the every single point or aspect on this front. So let me just start from where they stopped. So I believe that the implementation and expansion and development of data centers business is very important, and it's a key for any telecom provider growth, and specifically on the wholesale front. I remember Michael said, I even took a note, that data center business is a massive part of Verizon's business. I would say that it's the same on our end as well. So data center business is a massive part of our part. That's why we are extending every day, and we have extended our footprint, our data center footprint, which is aligned with our leadership long-term vision of creating a digitally empowered region within the UAE through innovation and digitization. We recently extended our Tier 3 data center, Smart Hub, to the UAE's capital, Abu Dhabi. And this is providing state-of-the-art infrastructure and connectivity to support the entire digital ecosystem. Of course, this will be the fifth Tier 3 data center within the region, alongside which we have now in Dubai, in Fujairah, and Calda as well. I think building, maintaining, developing and expanding data center is very important to enhance your customer experience with faster internet availability and disaster recovery sites availability also, and strong focus on increased opportunities for internet localization, as Latif said. I believe that, as I said, 72 or 73% of the local transactions happening within the UAE today, being financial transaction or trading transactions or gaming transactions or cloud computing transactions, are happening within these data centers. So building, maintaining, and expanding these data centers is very important. Let me just tell you that when you look back at the history of building data centers in any part of the world, and until last decade, if I would say that telecom providers were building data centers to fulfill the local demand of enterprises or businesses, and to also host the telecom companies' equipments and IT equipments and infrastructure. But today, data centers are serving the backbone of the modern computing infrastructure. So, and of course, this is playing a crucial role in managing, processing, storing, distributing large amounts of data for consumers, for businesses, and for organizations worldwide. I would say that without local in-country data centers, build, maintenance, expansion, and development, many of the online services that we are using today and the applications that we use on daily basis, such as social media applications, emails, cloud storage, and e-commerce, would have been either not possible to reach or would have been very slow. So just to conclude on what my colleague said and what I said, that the proper implementation as we speak today and expansions of data center is really essential, but also we need to ensure that they are reliable, scalable, efficient, secure, which is critical today for any smooth operation for many businesses and organizations.
Good. Well, thank you. We're getting close to the end, but I've got a final question that's kind of a generalized question. I think
just
a lot of you.
The data center side, I think it's very, very important that we also, from a telecoms perspective, ensure neutrality, because I've seen data centers built without neutrality and single operator service, and because it's been the only way I think it's happened, but it's stifled the growth. What all players need is neutrality, and I talked about open access before in terms of the overall wholesale market. It's the same for data centers, and those that are investing as service operators or service providers need that neutrality, and that goes back to the regulation discussions and where the market is in terms of being able to provide exactly that.
Very good point. Very good point. We're going to, as we cut, maybe didn't like. Well, we do have one final question, and this actual broadcast is recorded, so it'll be available later. But the final question: what are your upcoming projects to feed your wholesale ICT growth? Now, a lot of that is kind of a generalized answer. I understand that, but it'll give you some ideas to talk about where you are from the standpoint of marketing new and exciting things at your particular company. Mohamed, do you want to start, please?
Yeah, no problem. Well, I think that's the plan of each and every company to come up with new projects to feed, I would say, to feed the continuous spectrum of the ICT evolution.
Sure.
So at E&, Carrier and Wholesale, our focus has been on fostering innovations, collaborations, and partnerships. We strongly believe in partnerships, especially to support the vision of the group, of the E&, group transformation journey. And to also to showcase our commitment to shaping tech ecosystem within the country and within the region, and this of course will happen only by creating and implementing a digital disruption and diversifying our offerings to our customers. So we are very much excited about the opportunities ahead, and we are very positive about the impact that we can make in the lives of our customers and partners and the broader community. As a global technology group, EN currently focuses on providing a broader range of digital services and solutions beyond the traditional legacy telecom offerings that we used to offer for the last, I would say, 2 decades. So basically, we aim to deliver groundbreaking and personalized experiences, leveraging digital technologies to meet the customers' evolving needs in the digital era that we live in. We have made significant strides in AI, artificial intelligence. We have made significant strides in the blockchain services. We have made significant strides in the virtual reality and augmented reality and the IoT, cloud computing and edge computing technology. So, and I think that the company will continue to do so and to also look at new technologies such as development of the metaverse services. Without these strides, I think companies will not be able to sustain what they can offer now or what they are offering now as legacy service.
Good. Michael, what do you think from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of projects that Verizon is working on to kind of fuel the ICT evolution. I guess 5 that I would, or sorry, 3 that I would call out. One is 5G. And the call will know that we've, as a business, made significant investments into our 5G network in the US, $52.9 billion invested, and that's given us a national 5G network, but also using millimeter wave and ultra wideband network as well. So that, coupled with our fiber assets, an existing network, creates a really interesting piece of the sort of fabric, sort of network fabric to drive the ICT evolution certainly for retail customers, manufacturing, healthcare, all of those vertical markets. The second part is really mobile edge compute. So we've actually built our own network, which is called IEN, so Intelligent Edge Network, essentially moving that compute power right out to the edge of the network and then using wireless capabilities like 5G to connect end devices. And that's brought up some really interesting use cases. And in fact, I spent this morning with a customer in our 5G innovation lab in London. We've got another one out in Boston, and we are able to sort of demonstrate a number of those use cases. One or 2 in particular. So one is we're looking at using robotic vehicles to essentially extract minerals from quarries, which might well be 1,000 miles from the actual driver of that robotic vehicle. That reduces obviously all of the kind of safety issues for drivers, care for those sort of staff members, manufacturing costs, all of those good things. So that's been, and that's all operated within a private 5G environment. We're doing a lot in kind of autonomous retail, where you can essentially walk into a store, you get sort of logged as you walk in, pick up what you want and walk out, and you haven't shoplifted, you've been watched by a multitude of different cameras. Even if you pick something up and put it back down, it knows you've done that, and it then builds you on the way out. And that's something we're certainly seeing growing. Some of these things like kind of augmented reality in the manufacturing space for safety, so we can simulate an environment in sort of worst case situation without the risk of anyone getting hurt, and that's for sort of training purposes. But one of the again, the examples we kind of went through this morning in this session was around the port of Southampton. So those of you who perhaps know the UK well, big container port on the south coast, and we did a huge project to couple together our MEC environment with 5G to essentially create the port of the future, and 600,000 vehicles and 1.2 million passengers are tracked and monitored using Verizon's MEC technology. So that's been really exciting. I think lastly, from a kind of a way to fuel the traffic essentially coming onto Verizon's network has been IoT. So how do we get more traffic onto the wireless network? Well, IoT clearly is a major ingredient. It's not just about getting traffic onto the network, it's also about another kind of innovation, which is around ThingSpace, which is our platform to manage devices, manage SIMs, manage activations, provide a safe, secure, sort of security hardened environment for IoT devices. But the common thread with all of this is going back to one of the original questions of how do wholesalers innovate and how do we deal with that challenge of legacy business going, and all the evolutions is key to create new streams of revenue, which generally make a difference to the world as a whole, if you like. But essentially, it's about getting more traffic into that kind of carrier network. So other things I could go on, but I think they're probably the main three areas at the moment.
Thank you, Michael. Latif, tell me.
Sure. We have a lot of ICT projects ongoing, but I want to focus on, actually three things mostly. One of them is we have a green initiative. We are deploying solar panels all over our sites in Iraq to adopt renewable energy for reducing carbon footprint with energy efficient infrastructure. We are considering an evaluation process for building two data centers in Iraq at the moment. And we're working closely with regulation body in Iraq for future and continuous development of our connectivity solutions, especially for Silk Route Transit project that I was mentioning during our submarine cable discussion. And I want to focus something about that project. Do you know the top 5 populated countries in the Middle East? Before you answer, I of course want to give it quickly because we are basically almost, the time is over. So it's Egypt with 100 million people, Iran 85, Turkey 85, Iraq 40 million, and Saudi Arabia with 35 million people.
Okay.
And if you have a look at where Iraq lies, basically Iraq is reaching almost 275 million people, with again Iran 85, Turkey 85, Iraq itself 40, KSL 35, then neighboring Syria, Jordan, Kuwait. The top 10 out of this, 6 out of the 10 is making 275 million people. And considering the terrestrial route alternative need, Silk Route Transit is definitely going to serve well these people. And by the way, this will decrease the latency from 150 milliseconds to 70. It is well protected physically as well because it's next to oil pipe and guarded by security forces. So I believe it will be one of the best alternatives for those web solutions. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Brendan, what do you think from your perspective?
Like hearing what Latif's saying about the low latency again, two or three times. Clearly, it's a route and a relationship we're developing, but we think it's going to change the region considerably. So just to summarise, I think a lot of what we discussed about in terms of our focus and where our projects are. Number one, it's in terms of new cable, because the capacity growth, and we know the new cable has the advantages, technologies coming in from the vendors. We need to invest, and we're looking at various options, and I've been talking to the community about how we've tried to develop a criteria for how we're going to invest. But I think most importantly, related to that, is our existing network as well, and how that evolves. There's evolved in terms of the capacity that we can deliver on our existing network, just with some of the nanotechnology that the vendors are now being able to provide. But most importantly, the region as an access east and west is changing considerably, and we need to evolve our network. So we're looking at new ways we can take spurs, develop new landing points, etc. That, in conjunction with new cable, is the essence and the core of our business, and that's where our foundation is, and that's where we think we can add value to our customers that need the transit and the termination of services across the region. The second area is partnerships. I think Mohamed was talking about how important that is to his business. Verizon, clearly you can't do all this yourself. You have to work with the players that can provide the delivery services, or the players that can provide the AI capability. This is something you do in conjunction with these players. Ours is in a partnership approach, and our partners stem from clearly the operator partners in providing end-to-end services And we believe open access will give more opportunity both to customers and ourselves in being able to provide better, more competitive services as we continue to work with our wholesale partners. The OTTs, of course, which were really an area of business that we didn't have the relationship directly with the last 2 years, and we developed those relationships to really ensure that these players get what they require. They're very specific sometimes in their requirements, whether capacity services, whether it be SLAs, whether it be latency, or whether in the data center world, it's dependent on the exact nature of the build of the data center. And that brings me on to the DC business, the partnership approach there. And finally, the government and regulator part of our business and how important that is, and I included that earlier on. So the project in terms of the partnership area is critical to us, and we've developed our business in that space. The final area, which I haven't spoken about, which I think has been mentioned, is the automation of our business. Clearly, we cannot be a digital service provider unless we're digitalised ourselves. And we're doing a lot in terms of SDN, in terms of involvement on our network, etc., to ensure and the way we deal with our partners on an automated basis to make sure that we are best in class in terms of what we can provide to the community in terms of digitalised services.
Right. Well, good. Well, listen, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. And I think we may have gone over by a few minutes, but I appreciate it. And thank you.